the scrutiny's never ending. It's nothing new. That's something that I find a thrill in, and I appreciate being told I can't and that we can't. And I know that I lead this team, and it takes a lot out of it. It demands a lot out of you. I just want to show up and be the best teammate, quarterback, and be the best I can be for the guys on the team.
There's Jalen Hurts after the game, who, steady Eddie, right? Sometimes he's frustrating. Sometimes he is
He gave you
robotic.
everything. I mean, he gave you watering the grass. He gave you sharpening the tools yesterday. It was great.
You got a full-fledged Jalen Hurts yesterday, and you got a vintage Jalen Hurts as the Eagles win. You saw a Jalen Hurts that we saw really in 2022. It's probably the best Jalen Hurts we've seen this season. He was quick. He was decisive. He got the ball out of his hands. He surveyed the field. He looked guys off. He made accurate throws. And for that, Scott Grayson's grades gave Jalen Hurts an A. So let's start with the quarterback, who was much maligned last week. And forget all the drama. He did not play well last week, and it started the drama, and then everybody read into the drama based on what A.J. Brown said. But I don't think it was any secret that Jalen Hurts did not play a good football game last week. For whatever reason, Scott, he rebounded this week, played his best game of the season. Why?
You know what? I think they got refocused this week. I really think they paid a lot more attention this week to the passing game and some of the details of it. I don't know why all of a sudden he seemed to be willing to throw some of those balls that he seemed reluctant to throw over the past few weeks. But look, I thought he was very accurate with his back shoulder throws. Were on the back shoulder, and the timing seemed to be better. I think it still could get a little better. There were some passes that he was a little late to throw, or times he broke the pocket and decided to run a little late. Had he decided to do that a little earlier, I think he could have had some bigger gains. But I mean, at this point, we're nitpicking over what he did. I thought he had a really good game yesterday. It was the kind of game they needed for him to have through the air. And I just think that, it's hard to say after one game that you could say they got right. But it certainly was a major step in the right direction.
Yeah, and you take a look at, what was impressive about what he did. It's funny. We often talk about the plays are there to be made. He hasn't been making them. I don't think this has been a question of can he do it. It's why isn't he doing it? We've seen him do this before. So it was, hey, there's a slant to A.J. Brown, and it was quick, and it was decisive, and wow, it worked. Who would have thought?
Yeah, and they did one of the things that I said they should do too, which was in the early plays, the first 15, get a touch to AJ, get a touch to Devontae. They did that on two of the first three plays. So they really got those guys involved early, and I think that's big. I think that's important. And I think part of, it's interesting, AJ said after the game yesterday, I said what I said last week for a reason. And I think he was really sending the message that this passing game needed to improve, needed a little bit of work, because it could be and was going to need to be at some point, one of the ways that they're going to have to win a game. And in the playoffs, you're probably going to have to throw the ball more than you've had to in some of these regular season games. So I thought it was a major step in the right direction. I think A.J. Brown deserves credit for calling it to the attention that he deserves. I think he was unjustly accused of being selfish when I think he was just calling out that the passing game in general just needed help. And Devontae Smith, it was about getting both of those guys going. And look what happened. I mean, you had a balanced passing attack when one guy has 110 yards and the other 109. I mean, those are your two best receivers. They're clearly capable of carrying the load when needed. And when a team is willing to try to stop Saquon Barkley, it should open up the passing game. And now you have to have the confidence to get those guys the ball. I think they showed that yesterday.
Yeah, you mentioned the two guys, both Smith and Brown. It got overshadowed that Smith also was not thrilled with the passing game last week. He's not as vocal as Smith, and therefore it kind of got swept under the rug a little bit. But both those guys were a big part of it. And I want to get your take on this, though. Was this Sirianni reacting to what happened? Did Sirianni allow Kellen Moore to kind of, hey, this is your offense, take it and do what you want with it this week. I've got bigger fish to fry and get this team kind of on the straight and narrow?
I'm going to go of the opinion. I think it all just kind of the timing was perfect in a way, because I going into this game before AJ even said what he said, I really thought this was going to be a team that could make the Eagles have to beat them through the air, and it played out that way. They did a great job early on stopping the run, and teams in the past have done that. The Eagles have stuck with it. The fact that Saquon kind of got a little banged up also, I think, forced their hand to the air a little bit more. There was a whole bunch of things that went into it. I don't know that it was a conscientious effort, but I think when they looked at this game, they knew we might have to throw it more, and they worked on it more this week. And I think that was the intention coming into the game, was to be prepared to throw it, maybe 30 to 35 times, and that's what they did. It's what was there. It was what was available. The injuries in the secondary that happened to the Steelers as well, I think allowed AJ Brown to have a mismatch that they found sometimes and took advantage of. So it was a whole bunch of things that went into it, but I do think that they went into this game looking at the matchup saying, we've got to work on our passing. We do have to be better at it because we're going to need to probably have to rely on it a little bit more against the Steelers. So I think then you add into the other stuff. Okay, was it Nick doing this? Well, I think there was a conscious effort to get those. I don't think it was a mistake that Brown and Smith had two of the first three touches through the air. The way that went down, I think that was a design to get those guys involved early, which is what I said they should do. I love that. I mean, why wouldn't you want to get those two receivers a touch early on? Doesn't have to be in the first three plays, but in the first 15, absolutely. So I think there might be more of a conscientious effort to do something like that. Maybe not necessarily throw it 32, 35 times a game, because I still don't think that's what this team needs to do many times. But it was good to see yesterday that if they do, they can.
Scott Grayson's grades are posted after every Eagles game at 97.3ESPN.com. Yeah, the group got an A. It was Hurts. It was Brown. It was Smith. They all got an A for the game, but so did Kellen Moore. Let's talk about, a little bit more about this because, the Eagles, they ran the ball more on Sunday than they passed the ball, by the way. 42 runs, 32 passes, but the 32 passes is the most in a while. And you take a look at why they were so successful in it. I think it's, the designs of the plays, too. It was a lot of quick stuff. It's a lot of stuff that you don't see them do all that often. It's the quick slants. It's the bang, quick stuff to kind of get it out and let the playmakers make plays. That is one thing that annoys me so much is, hey, nobody can tackle in this league. Just get it to these guys in space and let them make people miss. It's the one thing that separates the Eagles' defense is that they do tackle. And there was a lot of missed tackles by Pittsburgh yesterday.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, A.J. Brown rarely goes down with the first guy that hits him, and that's a great point, which is why that slant is so effective, that he's good at. And, so I think when you look at it, you're right. A lot of timing in their passing game yesterday, and Jalen, I thought, did a good job of getting the ball out. But there was also that chemistry that I don't think we've seen very much this year. And the one play that comes to mind, I vividly remember this, was he was rolling out. He hit Devontae Smith. So Jalen rolled to the left out of the pocket, and he pointed, sending Saquon over to the sideline, knowing that by doing that, it took a defender and allowed Devontae to be wide open in the middle of his zone. And he hit him perfectly for a nice gain. And I thought that was great field awareness by Jalen Hurts, which is one thing we have really criticized him over in the past, is having his eyes downfield, understanding where to go with it once he's out there. And I thought that was a very important step forward that I hope he will do a little more of once he breaks the pocket and as time goes on. But outside of that, there were the timing routes. There was getting rid of the ball on his back foot when he hit it. And he did do that. And I thought he did it very well yesterday. And you're right. This league right now, there's opportunities after the catch to get a lot of yards. You don't have to chuck it deep. And especially with a guy like A.J. Brown. I mean, like I said, he doesn't go down with that first hit very often. So you might as well let him do some work. He loves it. So go ahead and give it to him.
You know what else, though? It showed a lot, again, of what we questioned the last week is why isn't he making these throws? These are throws that Jalen Hurts can make. I mean, he can make that slant pattern throw, and it was like that's what was so perplexing about this whole thing. And a lot of this season is there are plays in front of him that he has not been making. And then on yesterday, all of a sudden, he was able to make them. That's what's the most perplexing part about this whole, season culminating with his best game yesterday.
Yeah, I think it further supports the point that I had been thinking along, which was he was just being too conservative. You're right. He has the ability, but we saw it last night. We'd seen it before. He has the ability to make those throws. I just think he was so hyper vigilant on not turning it over that he didn't pull the trigger on a lot of that. If he wasn't 100% or close to 100% confident that his guy was going to get the ball, he didn't deliver it. And I think that was probably part of the conversation that was had this week was A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Like, yo, if we're on one, trust us, we'll get the ball. Give us the chance. And I think there was some of that yesterday. Now it'll be interesting to see. This league is such a reactionary league. What you do one week affects how a team will handle you the following week. I will be curious to see what the Commanders try to do. I think obviously you try to slow down Saquon again, but what will they try to do to defend against the pass? How will they try to handle that this week? And what will the Eagles do against it? And I think it's one of the fun things about this league. But yeah, I think that's what was going on. I think Jalen was just so hyper vigilant about not wanting to put it up for his guys if he wasn't totally sure that they were able to get under it. And what happened yesterday, and hopefully it helped reinforce that confidence in his guys. You have two of the better receivers out there in the league in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. If they have a step on somebody, let them make a play. Throw it out there. Give them a chance. Most of the time, they're going to come down with it. And I think that's what he needs to do more of.
And Scott, there were plays yesterday where he just threw it up, and it was almost like AJ was like, "Whoa, I can't believe you just threw me the ball with this." Like he was just kind of letting you go one-on-one, kind of high point some stuff there. And even the throw he made to Calcaterra, that was a big play in the game. The throw that he made to the short little throw to Gainwell, where Gainwell spins out of it. I thought Gainwell had a really important game yesterday for his role. And those are the type of plays that he hasn't been making either. The little quick dump off where, hey, you're the outlet guy. Now, there was a couple of instances where still I thought he got out and got a little bit of happy feet and got out of there a little bit too fast. But for the most part, those quick, short throws, if they're a part of the weekly game plan, man, I feel way better about where this offense can be.
Yeah, I think so too, because you start hitting on a high percentage of those, and then the double move comes into play. And Devontae and AJ can both run the double moves very well to get open for a deep ball. I think there's a lot that can come off of this. And you've been wondering, right? When the running game's so good, play action should be able to work. And when a team wants to play the run as well as the Steelers did yesterday, the byproduct of that is that there should be openings in the passing game. And it becomes that you have to get rid of the ball quickly because there's more guys in the box that when they realize you're passing, they're going to get through and you're not going to have a ton of time back there, but you have more one-on-ones. And I thought they just did a really good job. And you asked about Kellen Moore before. I thought that Kellen designed a really good game plan yesterday. The team executed it well. And we'll just see what they can do. Like I said, building off of this, it was a great time, right? 3 more regular season games. If you can steamroll that a little bit, and you can add that kind of confidence in the passing game on top of what they already believe they can do on the ground, on top of what they have defensively, this team is rolling downhill towards New Orleans.
Vic Fangio, you gave him an A. Obviously, I think it gets lost in the sauce because they didn't have Pickens yesterday. But, I thought early in the game they just dominate. You got 3 and outs, constantly. Got big plays in the game. You got a sack Nolan Smith, a sack Josh Sweat, got some turnovers in the game. But what did you like about what Fangio did yesterday?
Well, anybody watch, what was really impressive to me was you have a very veteran quarterback there in Russell Wilson. And anybody watching the game saw Tom Brady at times breaking it down. Vic Fangio was confusing Russell Wilson a little bit. And you could see he was a little bit happy feet back there in the pocket and had to get rid of it. Yes, he was missing his best receiver. Did that matter? Yeah, it definitely mattered.
Sure.
But Fangio was designing a good defense to really kind of try to keep Russell from knowing exactly where the coverage was going to roll. Those guys were doing a good job of winning their battles up front. I like the evolution and the progress I'm seeing from Nolan Smith, from Josh Sweat. Sweat's been steady and consistent. Nolan Smith, to me, he kind of got stopped on his first move on the sack he got, but if you watch that play, he stays with it, and he uses his speed to duck under the arm of the offensive lineman. And once he did that, he was by him and was right there in Russell's face for the sack. there's a lot of progress being made. That team on that defense plays so well together. They are all on the same page. That clearly wasn't the case last year. And that's a credit to Vic Fangio. He has these guys prepared. They've all bought in. They're playing for each other. You saw that when Slay got taken to the woodshed and Quinyon Mitchell came to his defense along with the rest of the defense. There's really good chemistry there. They're unselfish. And as you pointed out pretty much at the beginning of this discussion, Mike, they're tackling really well. And I think that starts with the linebackers setting the tone in that department.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about Nolan Smith as well. 5 pressures yesterday, had a sack. What kind of impact is Nolan Smith starting to have for this team from your eyes? You gave him an A as well, and Sweat had a sack. I think he leads the team now with 8.5. But when you look at the Eagles, I think that's the one thing that you think is lacking is they don't have the T.J. Watt, they don't have the Myles Garrett, they don't have that high-profile guy. But with the way they play defense, do they have enough?
One thing that I think is also lost a little bit yesterday is that defensive line got their hands up in the passing lanes. There were a lot of tip passes, particularly early in the game, that led to those 3 and outs that the Steelers kept having. Nolan Smith, for me, it's a byproduct of the Brandon Graham injury, right? We didn't want Brandon to get hurt. It's a shame he's hurt. He was playing really well in the last game before he got hurt or when he got hurt. Nolan Smith, though, is getting more snaps as a result of that because guys have to step up. Those snaps have to be taken by somebody, and he is stepping up and taking those snaps. And I see growth. I see progress. I see confidence coming from him. And I've noticed it kind of walking around behind the scenes as well at the locker room during the week. He is gaining that confidence, and I think starting to finally evolve into that guy they were hoping they'd get late in the first round when they drafted him. But that defensive line, I think the reason I mentioned the getting the hands up is because teams are going to start, getting rid of the ball faster, right? They're going to try to get it out of their hands quicker, not allow that pass rush to get back there. I think Vic does a great job of mixing in when he sends a linebacker on a blitz that seems to really offset and confuse some of these quarterbacks. So they're going to try to get rid of it quicker, and getting those hands up is key because it really did affect things yesterday early in the game. And that's something I think they need to continue to do. But I love the way this defensive line is playing. I love the way Vic has the entire defense working together. I mean, they only gave up 3 points off of those 2 turnovers that the Eagles had about a minute apart. And one of them, the Steelers started with the ball at about the 10-yard line and still only came away with 3. That's not nothing. That is the big deal.
Scott Grayson's with us from Fox 29. Scott Grayson's grades are up after every Eagles game. You didn't grade Jake Elliott, but the fact that he banged through a couple of field goals in the game, I thought was another story. The special teams in this game yesterday as well. You got the punt return from Cooper DeJean. That was a big moment in the game as well. So the 2 field goals from Jake Elliott, you had been wavering some confidence there, but it showed that, he still can get it through, and hopefully because – if you're worrying about him to kick a 52, 55-yard field goal come playoff time, that changes the dynamics of a lot.
Yeah, now he still didn't make one from over 50. He didn't have the chance yesterday. But he did make the one that then the penalty came on and they ended up getting a first down and then made the one after that. Those were 2 big kicks for his confidence, for the team's confidence in him. You don't underestimate that. And I think that's a big reason why Nick kicked it. It was 4th and 2. I mean, he could have gone for it. And I think some of us were surprised he didn't. But allowing Jake to kick that ball, I think was very important. Now, you brought up Cooper DeJean. I mean, he took a couple hits yesterday on those punt returns. I've reached the point where I feel Cooper is too valuable on defense to risk taking some of those hits. And I worried when he took the one where the fumble occurred that he might have been hurt on the play. He wasn't. He got up. He's fine. But, I would seriously have a conversation if I'm Vic with with Nick and the special teams guys. Is there nobody else we can put back there? I mean, look what Cooper has done for our defense since he got inserted in the starting lineup. Love the way he returns punts. I really do. But is the risk worth the reward in that instance? Because to me, I don't know that it is.
Well, obviously, Britton Covey out right now. I guess with Covey out for the next, for this week at least, will Cooper DeJean be back there come playoff time? that will be something to keep an eye on as well. Scott Grayson's grades are up after every Eagles game at 97.3 ESPN.com, and he's brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you online at GMSLaw.com. All right, Scott. Well, the report cards have been either all A's or all F's, it feels like, this year.
Yeah, a little high. Well, I mean, we haven't had an F, other than Jake Elliott, the one game. But, yeah, I mean, with a 10-game win streak, you're going to get a lot of happy report cards coming home.
Well, the applications for New Orleans have been put in, and right now the odds say we may be there.
Yeah, you know what? I would love to see an Eagles-Bills Super Bowl right now, the way these two teams are playing.
Wow, that will be fun. That one and the fans would be fun in New Orleans. You got Buffalo fans and Eagles fans in Buffalo. All right, Scott Grayson, his grades are up after every Eagles game, and you can check him out on Fox 29. All right, I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash